Well, my friends, family, esteemed colleagues, there seems to be a lot of confusion about glucose. Glucose and self-healers protocol. I mentioned that the God-given diet to human is animal-based diet. And we are like omnivore, like bear. And we basically thrive on meat and in a season of fruits, we eat fruits. But fruits make us hungry, so we hunt more, we eat more, we gain weight. This is what happens with bear. Now, I mentioned that plants are toxic, and toxicity we ignore. We ignore the subtle advices of our body because we are brainwashed into believing that nothing but good comes from plants. And plants don't feel pain, so basically you are not harming anybody when you're eating plant. Well, this was proven many times over to be wrong and actually contrary to this type of opinion. But when we go to the action of a self-healer's protocol, people are healing, people feel better. Why? Because we are tackling toxicity. There is no such a thing as disease. We are talking, whenever somebody mentions disease, we are mentioning symptoms caused by toxic buildup in the blood and in the body overall. And then symptoms of detox, which could be part of this. Because our body, our robot, is naturally designed for self-maintenance, self-reparation. And it does it through genetic instructions. And so it can better survive in changing circumstances. Again, through genetic action, it is going to be adjusting the functioning of the cells according to the changes of the environment. Basically, it's all on reaction of frequency to other frequencies, but for ease of understanding of those who are new to this channel and to this type of a knowledge, so we don't confuse them much with going into quantum at this point. Just talking about plants as a food, we have to understand that they are loaded with toxins, phenols, lectins, oxalates. So all those are toxic, and many more. Some of these toxins we can break down by increasing their frequency through heating. Same as body creates more heat, we get fever when we are more toxic because body is trying to break down those toxins by changing their expression through change of frequency and then eliminating them through sweat. But when we are talking about self-healers protocol, so we are talking about proper hydration, achieving the correct levels of plasma, so in our blood and lymphatic system. So the body does not have to save water, because only in a form of plasma we can hold water because of electroconductivity. So when the body has enough of plasma, it automatically goes into its regular cleansing mode, which is through kidneys. But if there is higher toxicity, it goes to secondary cleansing organs, which are the mucosal tissue. Or the third option, high toxicity, is cleansing through the skin, of course, and all the other organs. But if we are low on plasma, then toxicity is rising because of inability of kidneys doing their action, their cleansing action, and then even the mucosal tissue. So the last resort is the skin, because it loses least amount of water. And we are programmed robots, and this is the sequence of programming. Now, the other part of the protocol is genetic realignment. And this genetic realignment, why is it necessary? Because some food, some things that we are eating and we call them food, are not our food, and we should never be taking them. And once when we started, we cut our longevity from 600 years and more to less than 200 years. And more of this forbidden, biblically forbidden stuff, because Bible tells a lot of truth, although overall it's made to guide us into a slavery. But a lot of truth is revealed with the wrong explanations. So it tells you in the Bible that once when Adam and Eve started eating the forbidden food, they basically were kicked out of Eden. They were not kicked out, but they have ruined their temple, their bodies. And I explained that this forbidden food is glucose. And here comes the confusion, because almost all phytotoxins interfere with cellular hydration. Cells do not want to take them in. So even though they may not be killing us and causing immediate reaction, like allergic reaction, for example, the cells themselves are going to cringe, minimize their membranes, preventing this stuff entering, and at the same time, there will be minimalized even the passive hydration, and with it, detox. So we start holding more of the toxins. And if this is prolonged, we become very toxic on cellular level and acidic. Now, these toxins are, as I mentioned, phenols, lectins, oxalates, glycoalkaloids, and others. But nowhere is glucose mentioned. So why is glucose put into this category of toxic food? Well, toxicity of plants, which they use to protect themselves from predator, they have direct toxic impact on the body. If they are a little bit more toxic, we call them medicinal, because usually it's not the same toxin in every plant. Different plant, different toxin. And some of these toxins suppress certain recovery operations of the body. For example, like inflammation. Inflammation is not sign of disease, it is forced hydration, sign of acidity within the cells. One of those, or lack of water, so it cannot flush its membranes. So there are several different reasons why inflammation occurs. But never does it indicate a disease coming. It indicates toxic state already present. Now, glucose doesn't do any of it. Actually, when you eat glucose, there is absolutely zero toxicity coming in the body. So why can we eat it? This answers the question. Can you hydrate and cleanse eating carbohydrates? Yes, you can. You can even use the pulsar electrostimulator. As long as there is no phytotoxin in there, which could be because glucose is present not only in the storage of glucose, which is usually in the roots of the plants, like potato, like carrot, like yucca, but also in seeds, being it grains, being it legumes, or seeds from fruits. Now, depending what, because it's a reserve food for plants. Plants use glucose as energy, and they have to have storage of it, and this is where the storage is. Now, because of this, cellular mitochondria of plant does not need oxygen pump because produces energy anaerobically. Not only that, to utilize, to properly work glucose into the shift to adenosine triphosphate, the glucose has to be hydrolyzed. So a particular enzyme, glycoside hydrolase, has to be produced and utilized. Well, since animals, humans included, do not have any deposit of glucose in the body other than glycogen, which is very small amount. The only donor that can push the glucose into the bloodstream is liver, and it is very small amount of glucose there, small amount of glycogen. Most of the glycogen is in the muscle tissue and in the brain. Why? Because the cells, it's used as an auxiliary booster fuel in time of danger, life-threatening situation, so there is a faster thinking and more strength to execute the action, being it fighting the enemy, being it running away from it. This is where extra spurt of energy is helpful, and under influence of steroids, glycogen bond between glucose and protein breaks, and now rush of glucose, it's instant energy because it's done anaerobically, but animal mitochondria has oxygen pumps. So fire is already burning, and now you put oxygen, you get explosion. Sudden energy burst. And it has to be used right away. If not, you start shaking. Now, so we cannot tell that glycogen is reserved for energy. It is reserved, but for specific situation. What do we have reserve of? Fat. What do we produce if we eat too much? Fat. So that's our reserve. And mitochondria can beautifully produce energy using fat. It is a slower process, so more mitochondria is needed. And this is why plant cell will have probably 200 mitochondria. Animal cell, 2,000. Brain, 4,000. If you run it correctly, on proper fuel. If you are fasting, the only fuel is the proper fuel that your body stored. And it is not going to be glycogen, it is going to be your fat. And you're going to be losing weight. Longer you fast, and you have power, you can work, you can run, no problem. As long as you have fat in your body, it's your gas tank. So, if body can use glucose when it's under stress, well, what is the problem using it by bringing it through digestive tract? Well, cells, since they do not use sugar for energy production, they don't have high absorption of sugar. Glucose cannot just enter. The only way, because membranes are too tight, so the only way to enter is with a transporter. And this transporter we call GLUT. It's a protein. So when cell needs to produce amino acids, when it needs to use proteins, it needs carboxyl group, it will send the GLUT to grab a molecule of sugar and drag it into the cell. Same happens when we eat fruits. You have a free fructose. The sweet stuff is a fructose. Glucose has no sweetness. You eat potato, if it's not sweet potato, if it's regular potato, it's not sweet. If you eat pasta, it's not sweet unless you put sugar on it, fructose. But the sweet stuff from fruits and sweet potatoes, it's fructose. Now fructose will also be trapped by GLUT. So if it ends up in our digestive tract, since GLUT is present in the cells, it will trap glucose and bring it in. Sugar of any kind cannot go from intestines, through intestines into the blood without transporter. Impossible. And since transporter is limited, because we don't need a lot of it, we only have limited absorption of glucose, of fructose. And when we take it, cells don't want it. And we don't produce it, we never use it, so the only option is now for it to be transformed into fat, which is done in the liver. And at the same time, side product is uric acid. But what is the problem now with glucose? Also, not much glucose can enter because there is not enough GLUT. Well, when you're under stress and you start liberating glucose from glycogen, liver starts shooting glucose into the blood to support the mechanism in a case you need this higher state of energy for longer than a couple of minutes. But as the glucose floods the blood, it doesn't penetrate into the cell, it can't. So the body is already adjusted to shoot out insulin whenever sugar hits over the radar. And insulin irritates the membranes, relaxes them so the sugar can penetrate. We should not have insulin in the blood daily because it's irritant. It forces cells to resist, to start building resistance to it, thickening their membranes. For this you need more cholesterol, so cholesterol goes up. cholesterol is not a problem. It's just indication that something is happening in a body out of normal, because why do you need more cholesterol than normally for maintenance? So all this happens under stress. So body has mechanism with which it can utilize and control glucose. So when we start eating it, then it raises the level of sugar in the blood, goes above the radar, immediately insulin, like we are in stress, but we are not. But the same mechanism kicks into action. Whenever we produce insulin, which is a signal there is more sugar, automatically the robot is designed to start matching the GLUT production to the amount of present sugar. So every time you are making insulin, you are also making GLUT. And you start increasing the level of GLUT in your cells, which means you start increasing the absorption of sugars from your digestive system. And now, even the fruits start becoming poisonous, because you start absorbing not 20 but 200, 300 grams of sugar a day from fructose from fruits. Glucose is increasing the absorption, which means you are going to be producing more fat, but you are going to be producing more uric acid. If you are not well hydrated, you will have problem eliminating this acid. And it will start being pushed in subcutaneous tissue away from main circulation, and it will start causing kidney stones. It will crystallize kidney stones and rheumatism. So now what happens? More daily usage of dietary carbohydrate. Dietary, why dietary? In nature, no animal ever has diabetes, circulatory problems, high blood pressure, loss of fur, loss of feathers, doesn't exist. It's only with domestic animals, because we feed them. Why? Because they don't have access to this glucose. So now, what makes this glucose all of a sudden harmful to the health if we have mechanism that runs it? You see, this is why nobody pays attention to glucose, because we have mechanism to run it, no problem. Well, why do we live shorter life, and why do we become sick when we eat this stuff? Because when we start making this glucose available, because we are destroying cellulose in which the glucose is always existing in nature. In a case animals eat it, so it does not affect their genetic expression. You can eat tons of banana, ripe bananas, daily. You will have no problem, but you will not be gaining any weight. You will be actually losing weight, because you are eating a lot of this glucose, but in its natural raw state, where it is within the cells whose membrane is made out of cellulose. So you cannot digest it. Once when you cook it, when you grind it like seeds, you break the shell, which is the cellulose, thicker and thicker amount, and now you have exposed the glucose in it. Now it can be absorbed. So cooking liberates glucose from its original state, breaking the cellulose and making it available for absorption. Animals don't cook, they don't have access to this. If they cannot break the shell, they don't even eat the seeds. Very few animals, some birds, and when they eat the seeds, they eat only center of the seed because seed is being protected with phytotoxins, just so animals don't eat them. Legumes are very toxic, full of phytotoxins. But we say, when they inflame us and we are bloated because we are inflamed, but we say, with fart to a good heart. We have accepted all this nonsense as a logical science. We ignore our experience because we accept the bullshit we are being fed through science. Because it's corrupt science, controlled by Satanists. So, where the problem is with glucose, it's not because of its toxicity. It doesn't have any direct toxins, but it is not made to be our food. We are programmed to run on fat. And once when we start bringing higher and higher amounts of glucose, and glucose is automatically being forced into the cells because of how we are designed from insulin. Now cell uses it like it is in an emergency state. It's explosive, rapid, energetic charge. But what happens? It has 2,000 mitochondria. It overcharges. Luckily for us, that the glucose cannot be just absorbed like this. It has to go, the first absorption mechanism is through GLUT. And since GLUT amount is increasing steadily, gradually, so gradually we are increasing the level of sugar through years. And gradually, more and more sugar comes into the cell, forcing the cell to use it, and cell is gradually disconnecting mitochondria so it does not overcharge and it doesn't burn and doesn't make us shake from sugar. Which means that glucoholics, instead of running 2,000 mitochondria, they run 500. They are producing quarter of the energy if they use fat, because they have quarter of the mitochondria necessary. But it's sufficient if the energy is produced from carbohydrate, from glucose. The only problem is that we don't have storage for it. So you eat, you get charged, you start working, well, in 1 hour you start getting depleted on electricity. So your cells send leptin signals, oh, okay, we need more food, and body keeps sending triglycerides. Well, no use. You have 1/3 or 1/4 of mitochondria active, so you produce 1/4 of the energy, no matter how much fat is available. But whenever signal is sent for more food, more triglyceride is being released because we are not programmed to run on sugar. So we get high triglycerides. Doctor finds it and says, "Whoa, shit, stop eating pork, stop eating eggs." So by eating daily dietary carbohydrates, cooked or processed, glucose, we are increasing the absorption, we are diminishing amount of mitochondria, and then we cannot work properly on fat. So, okay, during the day you can eat every 2 hours, put something in the mouth and you'll be fine. But this robot is being repaired and serviced during the night when we sleep. And now, energy is required which you don't have. So you cannot sleep. You wake up hungry. You run to the refrigerator to eat something. And then you digest, so you cannot sleep again. We are completely taking the body out of alignment. But it's worse than that. Because now when cells are working on glucose, well, they need to hydrolyze this glucose for better efficiency. Which means the cell will have to produce now the glycosid hydrolase like plants. Fortunately, we have our doctors in the body. We have the genes. They sense the frequency change. No? They sense the other chemical. They go back into memory when we were plants and say, aha, cell needs to produce this enzyme. Bingo! And shifts vibration, the gene starts vibrating and sending different information, different blueprint. And now cells start producing the enzyme, which we have now renamed because it's in the animal, so it's not anymore glycosid hydrolase, it is now called nagalase. Well, this is nice and dandy, but the NAGA gene, which is responsible for this, when it is in correct vibration, it is giving a cellular blueprint for cells to produce GCMF, immunological marking protein. When you have something of low energy, low vibration, or something with a wrong electromagnetic imprint, the GCMF marker sticks to it with the name garbage. And now when macrophage, white blood cells, go and they see garbage, po, they attack it and they get rid of it. If the stick of garbage doesn't come, well, macrophage just says, hi guys, how you doing? Because there's no clue that that's a garbage. Which means, once when we start becoming glucoholics, and we are on this stupid plant food, our immune system is non-functioning. Doesn't function. This is why you get little cut, bingo, you get infection, you get pus buildup, and you can get sepsis. You need to put antibiotic. You need something, colloidal silver, something to stop this infection. Animals don't need nothing. They can be with open wounds in a mud, nothing. If some necrosis happens because of damage, worms from flies go, they eat the garbage, but there is no infection coming anywhere because everything is being marked and destroyed as it happens, as it comes. We don't have this ability. We lost it because of the diet. We have taken our genetic expression out of balance. We are forcing our body to perform like a plant, but it cannot do it. We are animals. So, for those who insist poisoning themselves with carbohydrates, but want to cleanse, yes, you can hydrate and cleanse and eat carbohydrates, but you cannot eat veggies other than clean carbohydrate. Potato, yuca, even if you want from flour, grains. But keep in mind that more other stuff than the storage of carbohydrate, if it's a procreative material, like seeds, like legumes, it has many phytotoxins protecting it. And not only that you are now readjusting your genetics, but you're also poisoning the body with phytotoxins, immediate toxicity, which means you cannot hydrate. So you can hydrate if you eat pure carbs, potato, pasta, yuca, but legumes can't. Seeds can, because they are phytotoxins, some of them neurotoxins, like in garlic, and plants relate to poro and onion. But every plant has its toxins. We don't pay attention to the subtle toxicity, which animals, when they feel it, they don't come close anymore after it. But we insist, no, it's medicinal, it's healthy. Slows my heartbeat down. Wow, fabulous. Slows my blood pressure because of that. Drops it. Oh, takes out inflammation. My body is trying to force hydrate so it can cleanse, but this hurts, but I eat this and it's medicinal, it's so healthy, it's superfood. Turmeric, oh, fabulous, great. Schmucks. Okay, we are all schmucks because we trust this type of medicine. It's a medicine, it's not medicine. So I hope that you understand better now the dangers behind carbohydrate. Because what creates distraction of your blood circulation is dryness and acidity of your cells that form blood vessels. And when you eat carbohydrates, this is caused directly through insulin. And since you are bathing in insulin every day, you are damaging your blood vessels and muscles and everything else in that way. But more than this, you have other phytotoxins, soup of them. So don't think that you are juicing with the juices of plants. Oh, this is all healthy stuff. Number one, it's zero energy, zero. And number two, it's medicinal toxic stuff. It dehydrates you. If nothing else, it will dehydrate you on cellular and on circulatory level, because your body wants to get rid of that stuff. This is where you are cleansing. It's like having diuretic, for God's sakes. Start thinking. Colleagues, please start thinking. Thank you for listening. We got continue programming this robot here. Love you all. Till next time.